Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Charter Chat. This is session D, which is going to be talking about performance, evaluation, and continuity. If you have happened to miss any of the previous sessions, you can find them on our YouTube channel. We will also be sharing that link to the YouTube channel. Angela, can you actually tell us where we can find that? What's the channel called?
Yeah, it mirrors the governance email. So it's the, geez, I don't want to say it wrong. Governance. Hold on, I'm pulling up my email right now just so I can be sure I tell you exactly what it is.
No
so it's
problem.
governance.flint.genesee.coc@gmail. And so the YouTube channel it follows the same exact convention, governance.flint.genesee.coc, and then you'll find all videos there in one playlist.
Awesome, thank you. So we've had 3 sessions prior to this one. We had one that was talking about governance and membership. We had one specifically talking about the HARA, and then we had one talking about the lead agency, HMIS, and collaborative applicant. Today's session, as I said, is talking about performance, evaluation, and continuity. These were some of the highlights from the charter that we felt were important to have a discussion and conversation about. So please go back and review those if you haven't seen them. The copy of the charter itself in its draft form is also available for you to review. At this point, I am going to ask Polly Shepard, who is our consultant, to get started with her presentation. She'll give you an overview of the process to date and then also walk through our conversation today about performance evaluation.
Thank you, Essence, and I'll work through the PowerPoint slides. And I apologize for misnaming this. We cover continuity in it, but I apparently got stuck on accountability and evaluation. So, but they're related to continuity, and I'll just verbally have to tie those together. I'm sorry I wasn't more explicit on this slide. So this is really about performance evaluation, accountability, and continuity. So being accountable will lead to continuity. So let's continue on. Excuse me. So these are the same slides if you've been to other charter chats that we've looked at before. A reminder of who's been working on this draft charter over the past year or so, and the process that we've been through, the times we've taken different sections or full charter to the general membership for input on various sections. The goal of the charter is really to communicate a structure and a process that works best for Flint and Genesee County. We started with trying to just reconcile the documents you have and discovered there were some fundamental, maybe disagreements, maybe lack of understanding, but a need to just start from scratch and say, this is what we want it to be. This is what we think would work best. So we've done a lot of research on other communities. We've talked through many times pretty deeply about some of the key elements of the charter. So we're still looking for feedback. We're sure it's not perfect yet, but this is the goal. We have some other goals too, and that is to make sure that the process that we adopt in the charter maximizes input, maximizes objectivity, maximizes evidence-based decision-making, collaboration, make sure we pay attention to community needs, planning, and implementation. We also want to minimize conflicts of interest in the decision-making, minimize the confusion, and commit to a code of conduct for all participants. We want to ensure the processes we come up with are fair, transparent, consistent, and compliant with funding requirements. And at the same time, build in flexibility so the structure works even if funders change or their rules and regulations change, that we don't have to go back and amend the charter every time. So in summary, these are the main changes we've done to address evaluation, accountability, and continuity. We've got various mechanisms throughout the charter to ensure transparency, review and monitoring, performance evaluation input, along with diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments and structural elements so that we are truly accountable to our entire community as well as to each other and to the work. We've clarified the roles and responsibilities for all the different parts of the structure, and we'll look at the structure in a bigger slide all by itself later. But each one of these is specified and spelled out in the charter. And we've established a new entity, independent review team, which we often call the IRT, that has a specific role and accountability for in each one of the processes related to all the different elements, in addition to their primary work, which is helping us review and make funding priorities and recommendations. So these are the highlights, and we'll go over some of them greater detail now. So for the whole organization, to keep it, and I guess I feel like accountability, I guess my brain just said, you can't continue if you're not accountable. And if the accountability doesn't show success and adequate performance. So the whole organization needs to be held accountable. And we feel like the draft charter has addressed that in these ways, that there are several mechanisms for organizational accountability in addition to those mandated by funding entities. So it's the IRT, each of the pieces has performance evaluation requirements. We're going to have written and signed memoranda of agreement with each of the entities that have specific roles with us, and those will all include their responsibilities, their roles, and evaluation criteria. So those will be in writing, those will be negotiated, those will be signed. So the whole organization should, by doing that, and the organization has to hold itself accountable to actually do that, that we'll be able to keep all the pieces and parts moving together. So the duties of the COC as a body include reviewing and monitoring and evaluating project and system performance. That's in the HUD guidelines, and it just makes sense. Some of the tools that we have for doing that include the funder monitoring reports. If the funders are going to come in and look at each of the entities that we contract with and their subrecipients, you know, you all should be looking at those reports, and somebody should be saying, so what? What does this mean? What do we do? Is this good enough? The committees all have work to do, and they have different parts of the whole system under their purview. And so they can help hold the organization accountable too by raising issues in their lane. We have an HMIS system, which should provide us lots of data that somebody should be looking at to hold the organization accountable, that says, what does this mean? What's the so what here? And there's no reason to collect data if you're not going to analyze it. So that's another tool for accountability. And you always have the vehicles at your disposal of client feedback, community surveys, et cetera. So those aren't as specifically written into the charter as maybe they should be. And I've made a note to talk to the work group about that as I went back looking for that. That might need to be a specified obligation. The organization is also held accountable by all the members. So you're a big collaboration, you have a big membership, and they vote on all the major decisions. So the authority rests with a whole bunch of people, and they have to hold the organization accountable by their decision making. The governance council and the executive committee have some delegated responsibilities and some specified oversight. So they too are responsible for making sure the organization fulfills its mission. And we have some guiding principles that we articulated that establish norms and expectations that say, you know, we need to have clear processes, structures, lines of accountability. We have an organization chart now, and we will have more policies around some of those things, but transparency, integrity, all of those things are spelled out in the general principles, guiding principles. So on an individual point of view, everyone in the organization is an individual member if they complete a membership form. So in order to vote, you have to complete a membership form, the other forms, and participate. But we did say the meetings are open. So just a reminder that all kinds of people can come to meetings who may or may not be members, and they may or may not be members in good standing. So you have a couple tiers there. But to be an individual member, we want people to now complete a membership form. So we know who's who, how to contact them, how to let them know what's going on, what committee they prefer to serve on. And that whole process will be managed by the infrastructure organization, the IO, previously known as the lead agency. And so this membership form also will require for organizational members that they identify who their designee is, who can vote on their behalf, and who the alternate is. So that is another step in the process. It's not rocket science, but will take some record keeping. Participation will be tracked by the infrastructure organization as well. And we said that the general members have to attend 9 out of 12 meetings and serve on at least one committee and attend at least 50% of those committee meetings. I think I updated this slide, but maybe not. But anyway, that's what we said. I should have. We also asked them to sign a code of conduct commitment and a conflict of interest statement with any disclosures. They're also required, when all of you are required, that if you have an emerging potential or real conflict that wasn't there when you signed the statement, that you need to report that in real time. And that's in the policy and in the charter. If any general member fails to meet these expectations, they may be removed by a vote of the general members. And that takes a 75%, it's a supermajority vote to remove a member. And it says the governance council can choose how long someone might be barred from membership, but they could be reinstated perhaps. I mean, you'll set the terms of that when you do take the action, but it would take a 75% vote to reinstate someone as well. The governance council has some accountability to itself and to the organization. It's elected by the general membership. So again, the general membership has a voice and authority on how the nominees get on the slate and who gets elected. So there are 12 designated seats on the governance council, so they're essentially permanent. 3 of those are non-voting, and they belong to the HMIS, the HARA, and the IO, previously known as the lead agency. And there are up to 19 undesignated seats. So those are held by individuals, but they have term limits. So in terms of continuity, the governance council has some continuity with those designated seats, agencies that you believe need to be at the table all the time for this work. They would continue on. And then individuals may also continue on for 2 3-year terms, take a year off, serve on committees, do something else. They can come back to the governance council. So you have mechanisms for turnover as well as for continuity. The governance council, once it's elected, can remove one of its own members with a 75% affirmative vote. And when the terms expire, the members are elected using the nominating process. But if in the middle of a term, if someone's not performing or is really become a problem for some reason, if the rest of the council believes they should be removed, it takes a 75% vote. We also have a role for the IRT in the charter that reviews each member of the governance council at least annually for compliance with their specific duties. And the governance council responds to those findings, takes action, and reports their actions to the general membership. So it's a little bit of self-policing, but with the IRT oversight at least annually. So the IRT we established to ensure that the funding prioritization is as objective as possible and free of conflicts of interest. So there are some criteria in the charter about who could and who should not be on the IRT. They need to be independent of the COC and independent of COC funding and be neutral. Right now we have it set as 5 to 7 members led by 2 co-chairs. And they work as a team to independently review data, independently review performance, make funding recommendations to the governance council and the general membership. And the governance council may request them to undertake special projects if you decide they need to. The members are selected for their knowledge and expertise in analysis and evaluation, and they're intended to have diverse and informed perspectives. Another way to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable to the whole community. The IRT is responsible for evaluating the governance council at least annually. As we said, that's a little repetitive. The IRT members also complete a code of conduct and conflict of interest forms, and the governance council may remove an IRT member, again with a 75% supermajority vote, if they feel someone is not performing or isn't as neutral as they should be, or whatever your reasons are. The contracted entities, and I'm talking about the collaborative applicant, what we've called the lead agency, the HMIS administrator, and the HARA. And so we have accountability specified for each of those in their section of the charter. Their roles and responsibilities are reflected there, and they'll be in detail in the MOA. So that MOA is a really important tool for you all. First the RFP, but then the MOA for really writing down what you expect and what will happen if expectations aren't met. So you will first need to develop the performance criteria for the RFP, so you know who to send it to and what you're looking for when you get the results back. And then you'll sign an MOA. The IRT has got a role in each one of these to assess performance and make recommendations to the Governance Council. The Governance Council will review those recommendations and forward them to the general membership with or without comment. So if the Governance Council disagrees with the IRT or agrees with it, you have a responsibility to make that call and then share your thoughts with the general membership for their vote. All contracted entities will go through a competitive RFP process at least every 5 years. And in addition, they're still also accountable to their funding sources. In terms of program accountability, we know that the HMIS administrator is responsible for HMIS compliance and HUD requirements and monitoring participating agencies using that HMIS data. So that data should be critical to you and really holding programs accountable and understanding if they should continue, if they shouldn't continue. The HMIS administrator produces annual performance report and other reports required by HUD and by you to evaluate the whole community's performance and fulfillment of its mission. Committees, again, are responsible for identifying issues or concerns. They're supposed to be digging deep into some of the areas of work, and they should be making recommendations to the Governance Council and then on to the general membership. COC funded programs can be removed prior to the end of the grant period and replaced. There's a framework of the process in the charter, but you'll need still to develop a policy and a procedure with a more specific process. Next slide. So that's sort of our highlights of what we've got in the charter so far. Again, this is the structure, and everybody reports up to the general membership. Clearly, there's got to be a lot of cross-fertilization and communication between all the pieces and parts, but that's the formal accountability structure. So I don't know if I made it in my 30 minutes, but that's what we have. Oh, good. Now we can open it up to questions, comments, thoughts, missing pieces. And did you all sign into the chat?
Thank you, Polly. What a thorough, great job of synthesizing all of that loveliness.
Yeah, loveliness.
And of course you have Polly's contact information. Are there any questions? I'm scrolling through the comments. I don't see any comments. I do want to mention, as Polly said, please sign in with the chat with your name and your organization, or your name if you're not representing an organization. We are all very clear, Polly. It looks like we're all clear. There are no questions. Are there any concerns? All right, seeing none.
Seriously?
We must be an easy audience for you.
Well, you've heard it so often before. I don't know if it can even make still sense.
All right.
So since there's no questions, I think we can go ahead and end this session. And we would just again encourage folks to look at the other videos that are on the YouTube channel.